Yo, I am currently a bit sick, so that's why I sound so weird. Job interviews. From what I've read, people have exorbitant anxiety of screwing up job interviews. So, of course, I looked this term up on Reddit. And of course, the idea got more and more solid because I have seen this video.
Mr. Goodman, what makes you think you're qualified for this job?
Oh! Ah! Stop punching me!
Stop punching
Please
me.
stop! Ah! Oh! Oh! Don't throw me!
No, not the fish.
Don't touch me! Keep your hands off of me! Ah! Ah! Don't throw me out!
This song is copyrighted. I must replace it. This song is copyrighted. I can't include it. Yeah, you know I just got hit with a claim.
So once again, I looked up on Reddit on what some of those ridiculous stories are. At an interview for a tech startup, they asked me if you could be any animal, what would you be? I answered otter, because, you know, fun, active, work well with their hands, and cute as f***. They really debated whether or not to hire me because of that answer, because I quote, "We're only hire predators, never prey." And they weren't sure how to quantify an otter, because none of them ever had paid the least bit of attention to any sort of animal documentary or read biology, or, you know, visited a zoo recently. God, that job sucked hard. I was asked if I smoke. My answer was along the lines of, a little, yeah. Mostly just when I'm drinking, so quite a bit really. Oh god. I got the job. What was the position? Barman at a cigar shop. I thought you said Batman. Now I'm disappointed. Man, Batman with a big stogie in his mouth. Batman at a cigar shop would really be an interesting position. I had an interview for an entry-level marketing job with a new and promising company. The office that the interview was in was about the size of a walk-in closet. The interview consisted of 3 questions from some piece of paper that looked like it had been copied 1,000 times. The job was door-to-door sales of coupon books for some mom-and-pop service shop. I got $1 per book that I sold, my interviewer got $5 from each one I sold, and his boss got $10 from each book I sold. These books sold for $25 each.
Jeez.
After the interview was over, I asked him, "Is this a pyramid scheme?" He said, "No. They tried to hand me a t-shirt that was 3 times too big for me." I interviewed for a high-paying job, and they asked how much I made, and I said what I made, which was not nearly as high, and the guy got all excited saying I was perfect and he could pay me less than they had been planning to pay, and I was like, no, you can't. And then ended the interview. On my gap year, I aced a phone interview for a office clerk, low-level admin position, and got offered the job on the spot. The interviewer then asked what kind of hourly wage I wanted. I said, "Oh, maybe X dollars per hour." Her voice immediately got cold and she said, "Oh, that's far too high. We're thinking $3 per hour." I said, X3, that sounds fine. She said, No. It's clear we can't come to an arrangement. I'm sorry I had to have wasted your time. But we just came to an arrangement. She clearly thought that for X3 you wouldn't stay at the job very long and would jump for the first better opportunity that came along. Was on a painkiller due to a fractured rib. One of the side effects was possible gas. Had been on them for 5 days and hadn't had gas at all. Sure enough, I ripped a loud fart during the interview because I couldn't hold it any longer. I was actually offered the job a few days later, but decided to seek employment elsewhere because I was so embarrassed. My alarm went off. Samuel L. Jackson's voice spread through the room, telling me to
that you wake the up.
After my interview, I realized the door was incredibly heavy as I sandwiched myself between the door and the frame. A friend of mine told me a story that made me laugh my arse off. He had a great interview. All the questions pretty much went perfectly. He was pretty confident that they were gonna offer him the job. After it was done, he shook their hands and went to leave. Except he took the wrong door and walked into the closet instead of out the exit. He was so embarrassed to admit his mistake that he stayed in there. The longer he was in there, the harder it was to leave. I mean, he knew he was in the closet, his interviewers knew that he was in the closet. He was in there 20 minutes before everyone left the room and he sheepishly emerged. He still got the job. I had a phone screen for a coveted position at a large pharmaceutical company. I had totally forgotten about it and ended up being fairly drunk by the time they called. Somehow drunk me impressed someone because I got the job. Interview for a commission job with a non-profit environmental organization. I know, right? Was a 8-hour day working alongside them. The whole thing was a simple door-to-door solicitation up in middle/upper class neighborhoods. The interview equals they get a free workday out of you whether you take the job or not. College interview. Guy asked me if I visited campus. I lied and said I did. He asked my favorite building. I said, nah, the big one. Had an interview with a casual games company. A couple of years before casual games were big news. I loved their work. They loved my work. So we got down to talking about benefits and starting dates and such. All very lovely for a first interview, but it was time to wrap things up since I had a 4-hour journey home and he just wanted to show me the premises a bit more before I left. It all started pretty innocently. Nice workspaces, posters of their own art and design on the wall and all that. Then we moved upstairs and it looked like a bit like a music studio. Apparently they all jammed together after work. Okay, I get it, a bit of team building is always nice, kinda cool that they all have similar interests. But not if I started to work there. The expectations was that I'd pick an instrument to learn so I could join in. That kind of raised an eyebrow for all the expectations. Moving on to what looked like a campsite further down the music attic. Apparently, it was pretty normal for programmers and designers to sleep over when they were busy with their projects. Normal enough to have a dedicated campsite in the building, complete with sleeping bags and whatnot permanently set up. Company culture apparently included sleeping at the office during weeknights so we could start early and stay late. So yeah, we're interview. But then I found out they were pretty much all wrapping up their work days by singing songs together before sleeping at the office so that they could start early in the morning. Turns out their salary offer was a bit low as well, about 10 euros an hour, which they quickly inflated to 14 an hour to start with after I phoned them up the next day to decline. I don't think you should have been really surprised by that company culture. It's the games industry and I don't think anyone looking to get in or already in harbors or any delusions about the level of commitment and pay to be expected. They made flash games for soft drink and potato chips companies. I was given a glass of water while I was waiting to be interviewed. I was wearing a dark lipstick. I took many sips of the water. I love water! Even during the interview. After it was over, the woman asked if I had a $1 for the bridge toll. I honestly said I didn't, but that I was intending to go to an ATM if she could just tell me where a branch of my bank was. She insisted on giving me $1. I went back to my car feeling pretty embarrassed about that, and then I looked into the mirror. Turns out I was turning the glass of water a bit so that the lipstick on the glass would wound up giving me Joker lipstick without me even realizing it. Badly. On both sides. I was mortified, and needless to say, I never heard back. Out of high school, I had applied to a stall called Computer City, and I had an interview scheduled. The day before the interview, a friend of mine's mom owned a music store and offered me a job due to my general computer and media file knowledge, which I accepted. I still went to the interview though because I was curious if I could get that job. The hiring guy asked me if some basics questions like, what's the difference between SX and DX process, and so on. It was honestly mostly superficial stuff and I breezed through it to the end. He finished with, if you want to work here, you would have, of course, to shave your beard. To which I replied, do you give chin blankets as part of the uniform? He just got this weird look of WTF on his face and asked, what are chin blankets? And I countered with, my chin gets cold and if it's naked, I'll need a blanket for it. Needless to say, I did not get an official offer for employment. I wound up having a blast at the music store that I worked for many years and now owned my own store. My father had an interview in the morning of my wedding. The only way he would make it to both on time is if he wore his tux to the interview. I have no idea why they hired him. I would have thought the guy was a lunatic. He probably started the interview explaining why he wore a tux, at first with a joke, then no really, wedding later, but I couldn't change clothes, so here I am. I would have given points for him for being clearly committed to getting this job. And with that, we end the weird world of Reddit's job interviews. Let me know if you want to see more of that content, drop video suggestions in the comments as always, and I will now resort to drink a glass of water. Have a great day.